Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Wonderful. Welcome to the very first episode of the Nashville Diaries.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew the name until just now. The Nashville Diaries. Ooh, so there's a page for every day, every situation.
Yeah. Every situation, every person is going to bring a unique experience, a unique viewpoint. And that's really why I named it that, because it's kind of like, getting your perspective on living in Nashville and what that's been like for you and sharing that with the world.
Ooh, I love it. Well, congratulations and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for being my very first guest. I mean, I feel like this is kind of a full circle moment.
Yeah.
Obviously, from when you helped inspire me to do this. So thank you.
Ooh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
See, the first and the finest.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Absolutely.
All of the guests coming after this are gonna have to take notes.
I know, right? Well, I guess what, we'll start off with, which is kind of what I want to ask every guest, is what brought you to Nashville, and did you have any other choices when you were thinking of moving here?
Yeah, so Nashville was never on my radar. I grew up in Jackson, Tennessee, which is the only city down I-40 between Memphis and Nashville.
Okay.
And Nashville, I grew up coming here. I grew up going to Memphis, and it just was not a city that I was like, I want to live there one day.
Yes.
Because the city that I grew up coming to looks much different than the one that we live in today.
Interesting.
So it was not a data point on my journey.
Okay.
And then I actually was interviewing for jobs post MBA, and I was engaged. And Alex, Mr. Sweet, as my people know him, he was living in Clarksville. And so, because he was a territory manager for Kellogg's.
Okay.
And so I was interviewing for jobs. I think I was interviewing for Boeing in Chicago, American Express. That one was in New York. I was interviewing for several different jobs after getting my MBA.
Interesting.
And then I interviewed for Meharry Medical College, and I really enjoyed my interview. And Meharry Medical College is the first African-American medical college in the United States, and it's right here in Nashville.
Okay.
And so I interviewed there, loved the interview. It went great. I got the job. And then my dad also he was sick then, so he had congestive heart failure. So
sorry to hear that.
I just had a lot of considerations. Fiance over here. My dad is sick. And then I got this interview that I really enjoyed. So I think Nashville chose me.
Oh, I love that.
And so I decided to come, and I got an apartment in Midtown, which is completely different from when I moved here in 2016. When I got here in 2016, there was nothing on Charlotte except for the hospitals.
Oh, wow.
So, and now there's restaurants and just all kinds of cool stuff up and down Charlotte. So yeah, I think the city chose me. I had skyline views from my nice apartment on Charlotte, and I just I have made it my own.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love how you said that Nashville chose you, because I feel the same way. Nashville definitely chose me. I also didn't have this on my radar. This was not in my vision. So now when you got here, because you said you moved here in 2016, have you moved around within the city, other places?
Yeah. I stayed on Charlotte for probably 2 years, and then we moved out to Brentwood, so we got married, and then we moved to Brentwood to get a larger apartment.
Okay.
And then after living in Brentwood for about a year and driving back and forth in this awful Nashville traffic, we decided to come back to the city. So we bought our first house in East, and then so that's how it went. I just went whoop 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 whoop. But
And so you've been in East Nashville for how long now?
Let's see. It's been a while, like 5-6 years.
5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I feel like the time just passed me by.
I love that. Well, I love East Nashville and all of I just ate there recently. I had dinner at NoCo.
Ooh,
so good.
You know what? The good part about living in Nashville city limits is the eateries are amazing, and there's tons of local eateries, and so you get local cuisine, but nobody's from Nashville, so it's people from elsewhere coming to Nashville to just put their own little Southern spin on it.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. So you don't get the traditional foods. You don't get like the Darden restaurants in the city. There's no Olive Garden in the city or Red Lobster. You get gourmet cuisine that has a little special Southern twist and special love from whoever brought it here.
Which is probably one of my favorite parts of the city is just how much food. I'm a big foodie, so I just love eating.
I try not to. But you kind of can't help yourself. So yeah.
Do you have a favorite go-to spot in East Nashville?
My favorite go-to. Why make me narrow this down?
Or a few. Give me like a few.
Well, I'll just say Gus's chicken just came to Nashville. Gus's is actually a Memphis staple. And so Memphis is also home for me. My husband's whole family's from Memphis. And then, like I said, I went to school in Memphis and growing up was back and forth between Memphis and Nashville. And so to have Gus's come on Dickerson Pike in East Nashville has just been a treat. And when I tell you they are sold out of everything daily, Nashville cannot get enough of Gus's chicken.
Well, I will have to check it out. Gus's.
Yeah.
All right.
But when you go to Memphis, Gus's is like lying down the block too.
Really?
So it's just, it's a staple. So
I love it.
There's no chicken like Gus's chicken, honey.
All right. Well, girl, I may be making a stop there today then, bringing some home for dinner.
Yeah, you will love Gus's. And Central Barbecue, which is also a Memphis staple, did spill over to Nashville. So, the things started to come with me. So I think the city chose me. Yeah. But then everything that I
brought
loved,
it with you.
Mine is a couple of other restaurants that I love in Memphis. They also came here. But it's just nice to... As much as Nashville has changed, it still has that down home Southern mentality, but also Southern hospitality and just like, it's just a place to convene and eat well and just feel good about your whole life.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. It's what has made me fall in love with it too for all those reasons. Yeah. Absolutely. So you are the podcaster of The Sweet Life, right?
Yes.
You run the podcast.
The Sweet House.
The Sweet House.
Yeah.
The Sweet House.
I live the sweet life.
Which was actually leading me into my question, which is about creating a sweet life here. Like, how have you created since 2016 your sweet life in Nashville? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, when I got here, I was an engaged gal. Yeah. And then I'm using all my Southern words today. Engaged gal.
Y'all.
I know, y'all. When I got here, I was engaged. And so I came here practically, I lived by myself. I had this bachelorette pad that was beautiful. And like I said, had skyline views. Now from that same spot, you probably can't see anything downtown because there's so many buildings.
Yes,
and when I got here, I've always been a blogger, a content creator. But then when I got here, I'm like, oh, wow, I have new backdrops to create things for. So I would make content in my apartment building with the skyline views. I would host little get-togethers in my apartment. I lived right across from Centennial Park. I'd go over there and shoot content. I would go to all the local coffee shops and shoot content. Love a good local coffee shop. And I think it's just like me being placed in Midtown. Because I think God brought me to Nashville, but he placed me in Midtown. I looked for apartments all over the place, and I was like right there, which was also close to the hospital. So when my dad would come to visit, he was being treated at Vanderbilt for congestive heart failure. So even all of this was just so convenient. So, but I was placed right there, and I got involved right there. Meharry was around the corner. Meharry, so I would go to work at Meharry, and on my lunch break, I would go shoot content like... I would go shoot content on near the Capitol. I would shoot content downtown, and then I'd come back after an hour and have like a full charade of content that I could post.
Awesome.
And so I think just like being in that vicinity of where Meharry was, where I lived, and then also the community that I was around, everything just kind of worked out. So I started to build year after year. And I just kept going. And that's the thing. It's like I was already consistent before I got here.
Okay.
But I kind of got a new stage and a new set when I came here.
Yeah.
And Nashville was Nashville.
Yeah.
So Nashville was like growing, and so was I. So I think that I grew up with Nashville.
With Nashville. How cute is that?
So I got married in 2017. So I had been here for a year. And then we had rain in 2021. And so, just like all the milestones I just started.
Happened. Yeah. That's awesome.
So, and I tell everybody, my husband is from Memphis, I'm from Jackson, and Rain is from Nashville. So it's just straight up I-40. Yeah. So something was leading us here the whole way.
The whole way. Isn't that amazing how God works like that?
It's God's divine intervention.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now with your career growing up, like you said, in Nashville, you just had a career highlight.
I did.
You did. You interviewed an icon of Nashville, Dolly Parton and Kendra Scott. So tell me a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh, it was the best conversation. You know, if somebody asked me how I felt, and I said, I wish my dad and my grandmother were here to see it, because my grandmother was just like Dolly. I mean, dressed to the nines all the time, wore her lipstick. Do you remember those lipstick canisters that would like flip up and they had the little mirror on the inside of them?
And
my grandmother would always pull it out and put on her lipstick after drinking coffee or anything like that. So sitting down with Dolly, I was like, man, you're like my grandmother in the flesh. But like, she's like, awesome. I don't know. She just, her whole mannerisms and even the way she talked about she and her sisters and how they grew up like sharing clothes and makeup. I'm also one of two other girls in my family and my mom. So I think we just shared a lot of the same experiences. And Kendra also has sisters. And so the three of us were sitting there talking about like how cool it was to be a part of our own sisterhoods. But then we're sitting here talking about their collaboration. So it's like a whole different sisterhood. But then we're also talking about the sisterhood amidst generations. Because Dolly created the song Love is Like a Butterfly the year Kendra was born. And then I'm sitting down to interview them like all these years after all of this. And so again, divine timing and just like there was a sense of peace and composure that I just enjoyed. It like I said, it felt like I had known them forever. So
That's so awesome.
And I don't know, it's where, like I say, I wish I had my dad there, because I think that he oftentimes felt like he left here without 100% completing all of his goals. And it's funny, not funny, but the day I released the podcast, last week, I released it on November 12th. November 13th, or actually November 13th, November 14th was the day he passed in 2016. And so fast forward, it's like all of these numbers. I'm like, isn't it crazy? Because I didn't choose the release date. So I'm like, I did not choose the release date.
And the fact that you felt so at peace, like you said in that conversation. So many like things must have lined up for you.
They totally did.
Moment.
But I think all the work that he did, he was a music producer and also a contractor, and all the work that he did throughout his life is why I was sitting in that seat. So people keep asking me like, oh, how did you get that? And I'm like, oh, everything that we do is compounded. Like my grandchildren that I've not even thought of yet, they're taken care of because God has orchestrated everything for me.
Of course.
And their granddad that they never even met. Which is funny because my dad used to tell me I acted like his mom. I never met her. I never met her. He was like, you're my mom in the flesh. It's very strange.
My dad says that about me with his mom, but sometimes I don't think that's a compliment.
Well, depends on who it is.
I know. I'm like, I don't know. That's so much of a compliment from you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, congratulations again. I mean, when I saw that come up, I was like, oh, it made me even more excited to talk to you today, because I know that had to be a huge milestone for you.
It was a huge milestone. And what I will say is you just never know here.
Yeah.
I feel like Nashville is one of those cities that gets counted out of the big mix because we're not in a Miami. We're not in New York. We're not in Chicago. We're not in LA. So people think we're all country bumpkins with nothing to offer.
Yes.
And it's like, you know, Dolly has proven over and over again that you can be from small town East Tennessee and be the biggest icon on the map.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
which is kind of going to lead me into, you know, just Nashville as a community here. Obviously, we have a huge creative community here in Nashville, and that's obviously played a role with your career. But what would you say, like, to somebody who is moving to Nashville and they're trying to find their place? They're trying to find their little space in this creative community and find a way to feel like they belong here. What would you suggest to somebody like that?
I think Nashville's creative community is a wonderful foundation, but you don't have to find your space when you know who and what you are and what you have to offer the world. And so it's like when you step into the room, I probably shouldn't say this, but you can work the room like nobody's business or work the room like a you know what.
Are we able to say that on here?
And so, or work the room like a preacher on a Sunday. You know, we'll put it that way. And so I think that that's what you got to do when you come here is like proclaim your space. And so I think it's easy sometimes in the creative space to be in this world of influencing, right? To be influenced by other people. And so then it's easy to not know why you're here, why you're doing this, who you are, what you're doing it for. And so sometimes you can get in these rooms, and I've been in these rooms for a long time now. Sometimes you can get in these rooms and not remember your why.
Ooh,
and so that's why I say, if I were to give some advice to a creator that's coming into this space, is know your why, first of all. Why are you a creator? Why are you an influencer? And look at it that way, approach it that way. And then when you do go into these rooms, go into events, you've got something to stand on. Get out and create your own content. You don't need a group of content creators at an event to get started. You can create your content in your apartment or at the local coffee shops or on your lunch break or wherever you are, and let that content speak for itself. And so when you get in that room, you've already established your who, what, when, where, and why, and you command the respect of peers and followers and just everybody else that you're that's going to be along for your journey.
And what I hear you saying too is also like creating a unique, you know, setting yourself apart, you know, and standing out, but understanding your purpose. It's, you know, there's nothing I hate worse than watching social media sometimes, and you'll come across somebody who's like an expert at something, and they're like, but you need to do it this way, because if you don't do it this way, it's not going to do X, Y, and Z. And the social media gurus are the worst. If you don't post at this time, and if you don't look at your audience, and if you're not sharing this type of content, and it's like, you know, sometimes that's just not the approach to go about it, because you're going to easily deter yourself from wanting to create in the first place, because you've already set up all of these parameters that somebody else set for you. You didn't set them for yourself to just not even get started. So even when you and I went to lunch, I was like, you got to go for it. You got to just do it. I didn't give you a bunch of parameters, and I didn't make the calls for you. You went and you did it for yourself. And so if I was going to tell any creator that, I think, you know, like I said, you just got to get out here and figure it out for yourself. I love that. And everything is practice, so you get better every time. It's funny, when I first moved here, the National Museum of African American Music had not opened yet. Which is my favorite place.
They were hosting the Black Music Honors at TPAC, and it was so funny because I literally grabbed my best friend who had a camera and a lighting kit, and we literally went to the Black Music Honors, set up up on the red carpet like we were big business.
Oh.
And she shot videos of me interviewing the Temptations and a bunch of other artists. And so I put them on YouTube and I was like, here you go, world. And so we made something out of nothing. And my best friend is not a videographer. She just so happened to have a camera, and I had a lighting kit, and everyone on the red carpet was asking if they could borrow our lighting kit for their interviews. And I'm like, see, that is why you got to do your own thing.
Yeah.
That's why you have to trust yourself and do your own thing. Because I could have easily talked myself out of it and said to myself, well, you're an amateur and you don't have this and you don't have that. And I ended up being the one with the lighting kit and the camera woman.
And the camera woman. Yeah. And you made it happen.
And I made it happen.
Yeah.
And I got to interview the Temptations.
Yes.
So,
and put it on YouTube.
And it's on YouTube. And it's still got thousands of views. And it's a video that I posted like in 2016.
Yes.
So,
Which, by the way, I know I'm going to go watch because I love the Temptations. It reminds me of my dad.
Oh my gosh. And you know what's really crazy? So the Temptations Broadway show came through Nashville last year. And so I had one of the main characters come on the Sweet House podcast.
Oh my gosh.
So
I love these
later,
full circle moments for you. Like you have a lot of those.
Yeah,
That's
I do.
cool.
And I was listening to a sermon on the way here about joy and how joy is a sensation that we have to call on. It's not an emotion that we just naturally feel.
Have.
Yes. And so when things don't go your way or when you're counted out for different things, you have to count it all joy. And I'm like, absolutely. I think I thrive in counting it all joy because there have been times when I felt like, oh, I should have had that by now.
Yeah.
And I didn't have it. But I'm also like aware of where things are going to go for me.
Yeah.
So I don't need it today. I'm
love
good.
it. I
don't need
love
it today. I'm good. It's coming.
I love it because it helps me like think about obviously with what I do, right?
Yeah.
And I talk to a lot of people who might be scared of making a decision.
Yes.
They want to move here, but maybe, I don't know, they're nervous, they have anxiety, maybe they're leaving family, they're making a big choice. Moving is a big choice.
It is.
So a lot of times people have to take a leap of faith, right? And kind of like jump in, like you said, make it happen. You just kind of have to go for it and let the cookie kind of crumble where it may, right? So you kind of did that, right? You took a leap of faith. You moved here to Nashville. You didn't know what was on the other side of that decision. You didn't even want to live here. And then you took that leap. And then now you have this beautiful, amazing career, life, and the whole thing.
Yeah.
So then would you tell somebody who's sitting on that fence on the opposite side, like just girl, take the leap or guy, take the leap? Like, is that what you would encourage them to do?
I would tell, but I also feel like it's a feeling. So I feel like it's a God thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not telling everybody just to move to Nashville just because Nashville may not be your city.
Yeah.
It may not be where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
You maybe are supposed to be in India. I don't know. You maybe it's supposed to be in Paris, France. I'm not sure, know, or LA or in the Bahamas. Who knows where you're supposed to be? You know where you're supposed to be is the thing.
Yeah.
So I think you have to listen to your intuition. I do think that as young people, sometimes we make lofty decisions without considerations. I lived in D.C. My last semester of college, and I was interning for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, and I was getting ready to graduate that May, and I had no idea where I was going to go. I was like, do I stay in D.C.? My boyfriend, who was Mr. Sweet at the time, he was back in Memphis. I was interviewing for jobs everywhere, and I'm like, where do I go? God, where do I go? And so I think, but I knew. So when I finished the internship, I was like, well, I have to go back to Memphis to graduate, and I do have my boyfriend, who I know is going to be my husband, is in Memphis, but I'm also a career woman by default. Yeah. So I'm just like, where do I go? And so I had to like get still and also start to weigh my options. Go back to DC. You don't have a job, but you're in DC and you can tell everybody, hey, I made it. I'm in DC. Sure. But DC wasn't for me.
Right.
All my friends stayed, and some of them, they're still there. A few ended up leaving, but I just know that like if I stayed there and tried to force the trajectory in the city to work for me, it wouldn't have worked. So I chose to come back to, I went back to Memphis, and then I went to Louisville, and then I went back to Memphis from Louisville, and then I ended up in Nashville. So sometimes it's not today, it's not tomorrow, it's a few years from there. So I think it just depends. I think for me, like I said, when I did finally come here, and after being here for a little bit, and also really working in my brand, because when we were growing up, we were told, oh, you need to move to New York to get into entertainment. You need to move to LA. Or like me, if you went to school for broadcast journalism, you need to move to a small town. I knew I was not moving to a small town. That just was not an option for me. First of all, I wouldn't have been able to network the way that I have. I also went back to school to get my MBA. I can't get an MBA in a small town, like unless, especially not then, like it wouldn't be the same experience. I needed to get my MBA where I could be around people who are working in big business. And, you know, things like that. I mean, obviously I could get it online, but it's not the same experience that I wanted. So it's like, what do you want at the end of the day? You know, it's as much as you think you don't know, and as conflicted as you may be on the inside, you do know. You just got to start talking to yourself and telling yourself the truth about your career decisions and life decisions. So
help narrow it down, almost like a process of elimination, right? Asking yourself really important questions, because that's the fastest way to any point of decision, is just keep asking the questions, right? Just keep asking.
And I mean, I was 26 when I moved here. 20. Yeah. Whoa. Goodness gracious.
You're like, wait a minute.
Time flies. I was 26 when I moved here. So just like, I was 26 going on 27. And like Alex and I we got married, and just like, I don't know, I just was like open to what a blank canvas looked like. I love I don't know if anybody ever watched the show Nashville too.
I saw like a few episodes. I didn't watch it too much.
Nashville came out like maybe a few years before I moved to Nashville, and I was living in Memphis then, and Alex and I loved watching Nashville. And it just gave like a different glimmer to the city, but it also shared like the grit and grind of the city, which is something that I feel like is a forgotten truth of those of us who live in the South. Like you will not find people who grit and grind like those of us who live here. I mean, Erin owns the studio, but Erin is a Memphis gal. She has grit and grind in her. She is the reason we're sitting here.
And sure is, in this beautiful podcast studio.
Because we're gonna make it happen. We don't need to be from New York and LA to make it happen. And I love that. But traditionally it's like, well, you're not a somebody unless you lived in like, you know, those cities. And I feel like Nashville did a really good job of opening the doors, opening the minds of people who don't live here into seeing like what we're capable of in the city. Because the show showcased all of the glitz and the glamour, but it showcased the dark sides, but it showcased the politics. We ended up having the first woman mayor, like I think maybe 2 years after I moved here, like just all the cool things. And we're a progressive city. So
absolutely.
And
so speaking of city growth, what are your thoughts as somebody who's now been here from 2016 until now? I mean, I moved here 5 years ago. What are your thoughts about the growth of the city? Where do you see like the growth going? All these companies moving here. Like, how has that been, like watching kind of like the city just blossom? And
it's been
flourish.
Cool to watch it blossom. And again, what's wild is like my dad built, and he demolished and was like building a couple of the law offices downtown when I was little, and we used to stay at the Knights Inn over on the other side of the Titan Stadium. We did not stay at the Four Seasons. We were at the Knights Inn. We didn't have the Four Seasons. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't that kind of city. So like the Knights Inn was probably like the best thing popping back then. But I do think that it's been cool to even tie back to so young as like a 5-year-old little girl that's like traveling in her dad's big truck. And now I'm like here, and I've watched this city grow up. And so, and now it's cool living in East Nashville, and we're all watching the stadium. Like every day when I take my daughter to school, we're watching the stadium grow a level. It grows like a level each day.
Does it really?
It's really interesting.
Well, I drive by quite often, but every time I drive by, I'm like, wow, look at how much it's gone up.
And you have to think they dug first, so I don't even know what's underground. They probably have a parking garage garage already done underground.
Yeah.
So like they were digging for a long time. I'm like, good Lord, what is happening over there? So to watch it rise, it's like the Colosseum of like Rome or something. And this city is like rising. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I look at it and it's like rising to the occasion. It's rising to like everything that y'all thought we couldn't do because we weren't in New York or in LA.
Sure.
Oh, it's happening.
It's happening. It's happened, I think.
It's happened. It's happened, but it proved a lot of people. So
it's still happening.
So it's just in the law offices that my dad had his hands on are still downtown on 2nd Avenue. So it's just kind of cool. I had the mayor on my podcast and I was like, this is what he did.
You're like, let me make sure you know what my dad did. I love it.
It's just kind of cool. But he has his hands all over Tennessee. So that's cool too. I was in, what is the name of this town? It's a small town between here in Jackson, Huntingdon.
Okay.
And so I was working with Visit Tennessee, which is the tourism bureau for the state of Tennessee, and they sent me to Huntingdon. And the lady that was taking me on a tour of downtown, she goes, oh yeah, and the contractor, he was excellent. He preserved all these bricks here, and like you see like how intricate he was able to make this. And I was like, oh, who is the contractor? She goes, Emerson Hockett. And I was like, oh, that's my dad.
You're like my dad.
So it's just so wild sometimes to even see like all of the cool things that he touched. So
I love that.
And my grandmother went to TSU. So
so did my oldest.
Right here. So
Very
and then
cool.
her mom was treated at Meharry Medical College for cervical cancer.
Wow.
And it's just, I ended up working at Meharry. So I think it was, like I said,
it's almost like I'm envisioning like these roots that you have and like these wings, like that's like what I see. Like your roots are here and then your wings, you're like just flying and it growing this beautiful life here.
So I don't know. And then I come from a musical family, like I said, like my dad was a music promoter too. So not only was he building historical things, but he was out here doing historical things in music. He promoted Prince and a bunch of other artists too. I like to tell people about Prince. It was crazy. When Prince passed away, my co-workers at Meharry, they were all like in college when Prince first came out. So they were all like, oh my gosh. And then one of them knew my dad from when he promoted Prince. So she was like, oh my God, y'all, Jasmine's dad promoted him back in the day. And she had pictures of herself at the concert. And
my God, that's so cool. Prince is one of my faves. Absolutely.
So it's kind of cool, but I think about it and I'm like, Rain is also, she's 2, but my girl sees a stage and a mic and she's in Music City.
Really?
She's like, it's her time. This morning she came downstairs with the Disney mic and she said, good morning.
She starts singing good morning.
So
she's in the right city.
She is.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, she's right here in the mix of it. So I don't know. Like, I'm excited to see what Rain from Nashville does.
Do you guys think you'll have more kids and continue to build your family here?
For sure. I've had jobs that have been like, we want you to move X, Y. I'm not going, no, I'm good. I can do what I'm doing.
You're pretty stable here.
I can do what I am doing. And that's the cool part about our world is everything is remote now. So it opens decisions for this new generation that is trying to decide where they want to go. Whereas in my time, when I graduated from college in 2011, those decisions weren't as open. It was like, we need you in the office for 40 hours a week. You're not going to leave from it some days longer than 40 hours. Some days will lead to longer than 40 hours. So I really had a lot more to contemplate than the average person who's moving now. The average person who can move now is like, oh, well, I can do this job remotely. But the cool part about Nashville that I will say is there's lots of entrepreneurs and lots of opportunities to connect with other people who are willing to show up for you, almost like family. But back to what you asked me about, what I would tell another creator, you have to show up too. They're not helping any of your body.
Right.
They're
you have to do your part.
Who are serious about their craft.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. I love that. So do you see yourself raising, like as you grow your family, do you see yourself staying in East Nashville or do you see yourself
I don't know where we're gonna go. You know, everybody told me not to move to East.
Really?
Yeah, and it's funny now because everybody's trying to move to the city.
East. Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, y'all are hilarious. Too bad. It is high dollar real estate now.
It is.
So one of the hottest spots in the city.
It is.
So and it's only, and just watching the stadium being built, it's like it's going to continue to go.
It's just going to continue, 100%. Yeah.
So it's kind of cool watching the
well, a lot of investors are, deciding to buy up in East Nashville because they see the value.
There's not much to buy.
I know.
Unfortunately, I'm like, it's definitely I feel like the people love it. So even the people who've been there, our neighbors at our old house, she's been there for like 100 years and she's like, I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. So it's very family oriented and just like, but I mean, every area in Nashville, I feel like in the city has its vibe.
It does.
It's like everyone's proud of like where they are.
Their area, 100%. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and one thing I say about Nashville is we help our people. When we had the tornado, everybody came out and that was cleaned up in a couple of weeks. And so you would not have known that we had a tornado because we rescue our people.
Yeah, that's one of the things I fell in love with when I moved here because it was not like that where I came from.
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of people, it takes a while to rebuild. But for here, North Nashville, I was, out there picking up stuff and loading trucks and giving out water and all the things. But we all showed up. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool place to be because of that too.
Absolutely,
because there's always hope. So,
always. Well, it's all about community, I feel like here, in one way or the other. That's
for
awesome.
sure. Yeah.
Well, Jasmine, thank you so much for sharing with me your perspective on the city and your background. And it's been so fun talking to you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
You are my episode 1, girl. This is exciting.
Well, thank you for having me. Congratulations on episode 1, and congratulations for getting out of your comfort zone and doing something cool like this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening to the Nashville Diaries. If you're looking to move to the Nashville area and feeling overwhelmed, grab my free guide to Nashville's top luxury suburbs and neighborhoods. It's your shortcut to finding the perfect place to thrive. You can download it now at www.movetonashvillewithtrista.com. See you next time.